Hello, good morning, everyone. So, in this session, I'm planning to talk about developing an argument in context of research writing. So here, I'm planning to discuss some key issues, and we will also discuss some examples. That's, I believe, will give us some insight into what exactly is an argument and how we construct it in the context of research writing. So I expect, participants also, to be very active. And if you have any queries, anything, you can stop me and we can discuss it and then go ahead. Okay. Moving on. So what is an argument and what is the role of this argument in research writing? Okay. So when you see the word argument, this interpretation is very different in everyday life and in the academic context. So, for example, in the everyday life, when you hear the word argument, okay, you feel, okay, there is some tension, and so the people are fighting it out. So that's the kind of sense we get. But in the context of research writing, in specific, and of course, in academic writing in general, this has a very different role. So what is that? How we present an argument? What kind of things we need to keep in mind when putting forth an argument and developing it? So these are some of the issues we are going to see in the next 1 hour or so. Okay, so in the context of research writing, so there are there's quantitative paper, all some stats, statistical analysis, those things. Then there's qualitative, which involves qualitative methods like observation, and so on. Then there are review articles, book reviews, and so on. So here, when I'm talking about argument, actually this is in the context of a typical research article. Okay. So here, I'm not covering review article or other things. There also, you would need an argument, but slightly different. So here I'm not going to look at it. So we will, when I say argument, it's in the context of a typical research paper. Okay. So what is an argument actually? So this definition is given by Belcher. Look at it. This is very neatly summarized, and there are 5 points as the author herself, has listed here. Okay, so let's look at it. An argument is a journal article, single significant idea stated in one or sentences early and clearly in your article, and around which your article is organized, emerging from or linked to some scholarly conversation, and supported with evidence to convince the reader of its validity. Okay. Can somebody, explain what it actually means? So what is an argument? Any participant?
So, yeah, in our own words, argument can be something, as it is mentioned, as a central idea around which we build our work and present it.
So, may I speak? Is it the
yes,
same?
Yes.
Is it almost the same as thesis statement?
Okay. Okay.
Like where we present what we are going to argue about in our paper.
Right. Right. Okay. Yes. In some ways, yes. But there is more than that. Anyone else?
Yeah, may I, sir?
Yes, please, please.
Yeah, can we say that argument is a kind of a process of validating what is a statement that you are making? A kind of validation, trying to validate what you are.
Yes. So one, you need to, as one of the participants said, it's a kind of thesis statement. That's the main idea, right? And you also need to validate it, right? And there are, a couple of other important points also. One is related to how you state it. Okay, look at 2 and 3 points here. These are about structuring language related aspect of it. So you state it in 1 or 2 sentences early and clearly in your article. So in a journal article, you cannot state your argument somewhere towards the end. It has to come as early as possible. Of course, there is no one single structure. Depending on the topic you are discussing, the discipline you are from, it varies, of course. And most importantly, it is stated very clearly. So that is about the language part of it. So what does it mean, stating something clearly? We'll see some examples. And then, see, your article is organized around this single significant idea. So that's very important. So how is it organized? Look at 4 and 5. So it is linked to some scholarly conversation. There comes your previous research, review, and all those. So you connect to that. Okay. And number 5, as one of the participants rightly said, you have to validate it. So how do you validate it? With a lot of evidence. So we are going to see what kind of evidence you can use, and how you can state your argument, and how you develop that argument using the evidence you have. So some of those aspects we'll see. So we'll also see one faulty argument, and we'll try to find out actually what the issues are. And then we'll also look at one beautifully written text. Probably it has already reached you. That is not exactly a journal article. I didn't want to take any journal article because it will be very discipline specific. And I understand here there are people from different disciplines. So this is a general newspaper article, but I felt it's beautifully written and we can understand many things from it. So using that, we'll try to understand how you build a good argumentative paper. An advanced version of it would be your journal article. Okay. So let's move. So this argument, its role, it's very important. You can see here, Gary Olson, a very well-known journal editor. So he says, one of the most common problems in journal articles is, people being unable to state argument very clear. And further, he adds, if you want your paper to be accepted, you need to sharpen your argument. So this argument, the single most persuasive idea in your paper, so that's very crucial. So no doubts about it, it's very important. So what does it mean? Let's look at it further. Yeah. So as I mentioned, this journal articles are organized around a single important idea. This idea has to be new, and topic may be old, of course, you cannot invent a topic, right? That's another point we have already seen. You have to link to the already existing work. So it means topic, may already be there. Topic may be old, but your argument has to be new, okay? And it has to be clearly stated. So two things: new, something new, and second, clearly stated and clearly developed. So these 2 points increase chances of publication. So if you have multiple arguments, there's a problem. Or you have an idea, but you don't develop it fully, then there's a problem. But you have a single idea and you develop it fully, then that becomes a good article. So for example, okay, if you say, I'm teaching class 9 students, say tenses, present tense, past tense. So I have found a new method. So if you simply say, this method is very effective because my students scored well on this test after the teaching intervention. No, that's not enough. So you have to first look at the existing methods, point out issues with that. So that's where you connect with the previous one. And then you clearly state your argument. So this method now works with, say, secondary grade students in rural contexts, in Indian school context. So something like that. So if your argument is very clear, specific, and then you develop it, you show pre-test scores, post-test scores, many other observations. Using all that, you can develop your argument. So then it comes off as a neat one. So now often people say, nobody has worked in this area. I am the first one to work. That's, I would say, rather very courageous, very, over general. I mean, I would say it's too much to say. It's, always there is some previous research and you have to connect. Anyway, I will not go into that. That's not my focus. So what I'm trying to say is, argument, you have to link it with the previous thing. It emerges from it, but you state it very clearly, and then you develop it with using evidence and other techniques. Okay, so some basic things. So when you say argument, there are some areas where you can do it, but there are some where you cannot. For example, some topics are not debatable, such as personal preference or taste. So if you say, is red prettier than blue, if you want to write something on it, it's not possible. Or facts, you cannot debate facts. And in academic context, some topics are very obvious, and so there is no scope for disagreement. Right? So, for example, I have given one example. Teaching method should cater to needs of learners. So I have come across, as a reviewer. So some people, say that the new textbook introduced, should cater to the needs of learners. So this statement is very obvious. Right? When you have, textbook teaching methodology, the main idea is it should help learners. So it's very obvious. So there is nothing there to argue about. Okay? But there are some topics which have multiple angles. There are multiple factors involved. There is no single correct answer. So that's very important. So when there is no single correct answer, then there is scope for argument. So you can say, okay, see, this works because of these reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can say, no, that doesn't work because of these reasons. Instead, I am proposing this one. So this is the possibility, 1, 2, 3, 4. So where you have multiple angles, okay, multiple factors involved, then you have the answer. For example, what kind of vaccine is good for, say, COVID? So now you know that there are multiple vaccines available because they have looked at the same issue from multiple perspectives. Okay? So that's precisely the point. So when there is scope for multiple interpretation, multiple things, or for example, if you are a literature student, so Shakespeare's works. So Shakespeare wrote some 400, 500 years back, and still his works are subjected to a lot of debate and interpretation because there is subjectivity open to interpretation and there is no single answer correct. So such things, you can come up with your argument. Also, one point I have not added. You should not argue. Your argument should not be very grandiose. Something like you are envisioning a massive change. That is not possible. In other words, your argument has to be specific and pinpointed. If you say, okay, so in India, democracy is not working, dictatorship is the solution. If that is your argument, it's a problem. If you are, talking too big thing. Think of, logistics issues, what kind of things happen on ground, what exactly it means by dictatorship. So there are a lot of issues. So even in academic context, you should not think of such very big arguments. Your argument should be specific, something which you can defend it, something which has implications, and so on. Okay. Now, stating the argument. So you have an argument, we saw it earlier also. How you state it is also very important. So one point is you have to be precise. So do not use even a single word extra. If you can say it in 5 words, use only 5 words. Right? There is some misconception that if you write very complex sentence, very long sentence, your readers will be impressed. On the contrary, if you use very short sentence, but to the point, that's likely to be more effective. Okay? So you have to state it in simple terms, but very clearly so as to persuade your readers. Okay? So we will look at an example, how you can state something very forcefully, how you can persuade people. Then leave little scope for ambiguity. Choice of words, it should be very careful. You should not lead to multiple interpretations. Okay? So in literature, we say a particular work can be interpreted differently. Yes, that's a creative writing, it's possible. But academic context, research writing, there is no such. You should not leave any scope for ambiguity. Okay. And you have to use discipline-specific terms. You can't use too vague and general things. Okay? For example, task-based language teaching. This is a very important key term when it comes to language teaching. So you have to use it. Okay? So you have to use discipline-specific terms. Okay. Now let's look at some examples. Please read, these two and tell me which one you find more effectively stated.
The right side one, sir.
Longish text?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think so?
It supports the argument.
Sorry?
It supports the argument.
Okay. Okay. What is wrong with the...
It gives the reasons.
Okay.
It is just an opinion. It's just an opinion.
Okay. So why do you think it's an opinion? You're right. You're absolutely
Yes.
right.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just thinking. Just a minute.
Okay.
It's just an opinion in like you state. It's your premise. You're basing it. You're not giving a reason or evidence. Why do you think so? There is no rational.
Yes. There is no, it is not supported. Yes, good point. Also, look at the choice of words. Okay. So I said, you should not leave any scope for ambiguity. If you say, I argue that colonialism was bad. So what does bad mean? Bad for whom? Bad in terms of what? Social context, economic impact, politically, or was it for the colonizer? Right? Bad is a very subjective word. If you say food is bad, it means something else. If you say, this decision was bad, the meaning is different. If you say it's a bad price for crops, it means something else. Right? So the word bad is very subjective. And also see, should not have happened. So this is again too grandiose. It has already happened in the past. So what are you trying to achieve here? Right? You can't go back to the past and change it. Instead, look at the right column. I argue that British colonizers went to great lengths to portray themselves as Christian civilizers in Kenya during the 1950s and to tarnish the Kikuyu as barbaric primitives, despite committing much greater atrocities during the Mau Mau uprising. So you are very clearly saying this is in the context of Kenya, time 1950s, and British colonizers actually tarnished the image of Kikuyu tribes, but they themselves committed greater atrocities previously or something else. Later, you can see that the writer develops this, but it is very clear area is what time period I am looking at and who are the parties involved. Right? So very clearly stated. In contrast, the left one does not say when, where, who, nothing. Right? So it's very vague. There is a lot of ambiguity and it's not stated clearly. Any other observations? Okay, now let's move to second example.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir. In the first statement, the death of whom is not available.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're right. Also, any other issue?
It is like grandiose sort of thing, because he is saying he's trying to prove in the beginning itself.
Two very broad statement, right? Also, look at the verb there, the word affect. Anything wrong with that?
Is it a sort of negative meaning, sir?
Is it always negative?
Not always, but in this context, it is not very clear.
That's the point. See, the word affect can be either positive or negative, right? So what direction, the influence, in what direction? So that is not stated in the first one, the one which you see, in the left column. In contrast, look at the right column. I argue that. So the reporting verbs, argue, propose, that's another issue. I'm not going to that. So what the reporting verb you use, that's also very important. When you say I show, you are actually very confident. And one of the principles of academic writing is, we call it hedging. You have to be little cautious when you are stating it. But instead, if you say I argue, it's your argument. Fine. You agree with it or not, doesn't matter. Okay? So you are being little safer. Let's look at it. I argue that gun control is vital to the safety of white Americans, not African Americans, because I found that the high levels of white gun ownership are positively correlated with suicides among whites, but that the low levels of black gun ownership are not correlated with reduced homicides of blacks. So now you are very clearly stating, with reference to whom. So white Americans versus African Americans. And then again, you are being very specific. You say that it negatively affects, and only whom? Only white Americans. You also say it doesn't affect African Americans, and you are also giving reason for it. Right? And then you expect that the writer is going to, okay. There is another thing, yes. There's one important technical word is used in the right column. Can somebody identify it? Instead of the word affect, okay? The writer
correlated.
Yes, exactly. Good. Very good. So correlation is a technical term. So I'm sure some of you are from maths, stats background. So you know that there is a correlation test. It's approved, it's statistically approved test. So so here it means the author has run some correlation tests and has stats, right? So when you have standardized, we call it standardized tests. You have run standardized tests and you have stats, it becomes difficult to negate it, right? So it's a very solid evidence. And it is reflected in the choice of words also. So see, if you simply say affect, that's again very vague word. Right? Instead, if you say correlate, that's very precise. Okay? So this is how, you state your argument, okay, precisely, and without leaving any scope for ambiguity. So particularly, see, if you read abstracts in general article, so there, you have the word limit. So most papers, most journals say within 100 to 150 words. And accepted or not, even for a conference or a later, thing, first people read your abstract. So there you have to state your argument very precisely, and you have to give hint to your readers. See, I have followed all the procedures, and I'm going to present evidence later on. So now when you see this, when you see the word correlate, it gives the hint. Okay, reader next, is going to expect some stats, some correlation tests. So no, this is very beautifully stated argument. Okay, any questions? Okay, so let's move. Okay. This is about, so far we have looked at what an argument is and how you state it. Now we are going to look at different kinds of evidence and how you have to develop that argument. Okay? So as I said, it's not just enough to be very precise and state your argument. You also have to support it with evidence. So you have to convince your reader, you have looked at the issue in detail, you have considered different perspectives, and you are building a strong argument. And the example which we are going to look at now is a newspaper article with a very clear intention. You want to persuade your readers to do something. So in such context, you really need to have a lot of evidence to convince people. Okay? So how you are going to do it? Okay? What kind of evidence one can use? We'll look at it. So that's supporting an argument with evidence. There are three, in the literature, scholars identify three main kinds, okay? Rational, emotional, and ethical. I'll briefly mention emotional and ethical, and I'll concentrate mostly on rational. So emotional, as the name says, you try to appeal to people's emotions. So think of movies in Indian context. Okay, so villain has captured the heroine. He is torturing, or maybe villain has captured hero's parents, and hero has to agree to the villain's irrational demands in order to save his parents, right? So it's such an emotional scene. So similarly, in some, for example, you show the picture of melting ice, and you put the picture of a polar bear, and you say, where will these polar bears go when the ice is melted? Put picture of polar bears, polar bear cubs, and you try to emotionally appeal to people. So that would be emotional support for argument. Ethical or moral, is, for example, in an Indian context, we believe children should take care of their parents in their old age. There is no rule, no law, probably, but it's in the Indian psyche. Okay? We feel ethically, morally, we should do it. So that is a kind of ethical support for the argument. But in academic context, in research papers, these two have very limited scope. You have to give rational support. Okay? Let's read this example. So what is the argument here?
So the argument here is that people who have already contracted the virus and are later vaccinated will have a longer immune response to the virus.
Yes, good. Right. So on what basis did they come to this conclusion?
Based on the research by the immunologist at Washington University in St. Louis.
Yes. So they have conducted some research, right? Look at the second line. In a study published in the journal Nature, researchers discovered that the vaccines made by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna set off a persistent immune reaction in the body. So what those things are, not many specific details are given here. This is because it's a newspaper extract. But it's very clear they ran some tests, okay, and they observed something. They have got some data. And based on that, they have come to some conclusion. So this is an example of rational support for argument. So this is not, simply stated, okay, not whimsies and fancies of the researcher. There is a strong research. You have got some data. Based on that, you are saying this. Okay. So you need, this kind of rational support for argument. So what all things you can include? Okay. We will look at now. So one, we say primary source information. These are documents or other materials produced by individuals involved with the issue or conclusions you reached. For example, to make a claim about the effect of lockdown on Indian economy, you can go interview shopkeepers, you get data, analyze it, and then you can reach the conclusion. So that will be a good rational support for your argument. Obviously, there are some points you need to keep in mind: adequate sampling, rigorous analysis, controlling other variables, and so on. I am not going to details. This involves research methodology. But what I'm saying is you have collected data using appropriate procedures. Based on that, you can say. But I know I may have experienced it personally, but that's not enough to argue that lockdown has affected Indian economy. You need solid evidence, and that one of the ways you go and get it from interview shopkeepers and get it, right? So that's one way of going about it. Second, you can use already established truths, in order to back up your argument. So there are different kinds of established truths and facts: historical, scientific, geographical, etc., etc. For example, we know that ozone layer is very crucial. It protects Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation. And we also know that CFC, chlorofluorocarbon, kind of chemical, it damages ozone. So connecting these two, you can argue that we need to reduce use of CFCs. So that's your argument, and it is based on established scientific facts. So I gave you a very simple example, but otherwise also you can think of it. I'll give you one example from language teaching context. So many research studies have showed that some areas of grammar are more difficult for learners. For example, third person present tense, singular, yes, he goes, she goes, it goes. So this has been shown to be difficult for learners. Many studies have showed it. So you can use it as a basis for your argument to say, okay, because this has been shown to be difficult, this has to be taught very clearly, and I am proposing this methodology in Indian context. So it works. Right? So you can use these things. By extension, as I gave you an example, backing on the previous research. Obviously, the studies you choose should be authentic, should be reliable. Okay? Means they have been conducted using protocols. They are there is a valid argument supported and so on. So using that, you can build your argument. Next, opinions of authorities. So who is an authority? Okay, so an authority is a recognized expert in the field. These are people in responsible positions, okay, in reputed universities, institutes, and people who have got peer recognition, like something like somebody has won a Nobel Prize. So if you quote that person, that gives strength to your argument. So here is an example. Look at this. So this is in the context of vaccination. So if I as a lay person, if I say, okay, I have already got 2 doses of vaccine, so I don't need any booster dose in future. So that doesn't carry any weight. But you have an expert, Deepta Bhattacharya. So who is this person? This person is an immunologist who works in the area of in this field, and is affiliated to a very reputed university. So this person's views matter. Right? Similarly, on economy, if an economist says something, that carries more weight than a politician. So experts in field, opinions of authorities, okay, you can use this to support. This you will particularly see, in newspaper articles, op-ed articles, but opinion articles, opinion pages. Okay. Yes, then personal experience. So this, you have to structure it, personal experience. Otherwise, it does not become very good support. Say, as a teacher, you have experienced some specific problem, and you try to solve it on your own, and it worked. So you can use that to write an article. Okay. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Can you see the screen?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
Not visible, sir.
Okay. Can you see now?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now it's
Okay.
visible, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, there was some technical issue. Okay. So, but how you use your personal experience, that's important. Let's say you were traveling on a bullet train, and unfortunately, it met with a small accident, let's say. So this is your personal experience. You can't use that and say bullet trains are dangerous. There is no safety in that would be too much of a stretch. So how you use your personal experience, that's very important. This you often see in job interviews. Okay, so people usually ask, talk about an incident from your life to show that you handled, leadership very effective. So students, then they may say, I was president of, my college tech fest. I was a counselor, overseeing new students, something like that. So you are using a personal experience to build an argument. So that's also possible. But I'm saying you have to structure it very carefully. Okay. So as I said, you cannot, even in a previous research, you cannot use everything which comes across. You have to evaluate it. How credible something is, how reliable it is. Okay? Here is an example. If you want to talk about population, say in Indian context, the census data is far more reliable than what it appears in a newspaper article. So you see often, what's India's population? So they'll say according to 2011 census. Census happens only once in 10 years in India. So what do you do later on? But still you refer to the census because that's far more reliable. Then you may estimate. Now Indian population may be around 130 crores. So it's only an estimate. But the reliable data is from census. So how much you have? So if only one person is saying something, you take it with a pinch of salt. Okay. But if many people so you have found something, and if others can replicate it, so it's a solid evidence that what you found was actually genuine and reliable. So for example, the vaccines. So you gave vaccine to one group, it was effective. It was given to some others, there also it was effective. Then you can say the vaccine is effective. So how much confirming evidence you have? That's very important. If a methodology, teaching methodology, if a technique only in very narrow context, something which is not generalizable, okay, then there is a problem. Okay, how much contradictory evidence is there? Okay. So remember, in the beginning we saw that most issues, you can look at it from multiple perspectives. So it's likely to be there is some contradictory evidence. That's most likely possible. But how much? Okay. So there are studies which support, say, vitamin supplements. 10 studies support vitamin supplements. Only 2 studies have contradictory evidence. So then it goes in favor of studies which support the vitamin supplements. But if there are equal number of studies, then you have to be careful. Okay, so how well established? How well established means many people have conducted experiments, many people have got the same result over a period of years. Okay? There is no debate now. Example is Big Bang. So most scientists agree that the world started with the Big Bang. So exact nature of it is debatable, but most people agree that it starts with the Big Bang. Or say what happened with Pluto very recently. Right? Pluto was demoted. It is no longer considered a planet. So now we say, when we all studied in school, we studied 9 planets, but now in schools, 8 planets are taught in the solar system. So these are all reliable. You can use for your argument. Okay, how the evidence leads to conclusion. So TV violence, say for example, there is a lot of violence in TV shows, and how does it affect children? Okay, so if you say it makes children play also aggressively, that's one level. But if you stretch it too much and say because of that children intend to kill others, that's a bit of a too much. Okay, so that we have to avoid. Okay, so so we have now looked at all kinds of, I won't say all, some important kinds of evidence. So next is using these evidence to come to conclusion, developing your argument. I will look at this very briefly. Many of you may be already aware. There is something called induction, bottom-up approach, and deduction, top-down. So induction means you move from specific to general. So you have some specific evidence, like many students who have done this course have got good jobs. Therefore, this course is good. There is change in marks of the control group after the intervention. So this teaching method is effective. So you start with the specific evidence and generalize it. Okay, I go to deduction. It's the other way around. You start from a general theory and apply it to specific instance. Okay. Look at the example. For a profitable career, good education is necessary. It's a very general statement. For a good education, students must study hard. This is again a general statement, mostly accepted. Therefore, if my friend wants a good career, she must study well. So taking general statements, you have applied to specific context. Okay. So you can say this teaching methodology has worked in all the other places. Therefore, this methodology is effective. Therefore, it has to be applied in India. So that would be another example. Okay. So when it comes to evidence and then building on evidence, so we may make mistakes sometimes. These are called logical fallacies. You are not likely to find them in journals articles, published articles, but you see it in the discourse around you, newspaper, news channels, and so on. And also we need to avoid these in order to avoid rejection, okay, from journals. So what are these? So one, is called post hoc ergo propter hoc. It means you wrongly assume there is some cause-effect relationship between the two. Okay? Let's say you taught students something for 1 week, and after that, you see that your students have scored higher, say on a grammar test. And you come to conclusion, the performance improved because of my teaching. But there is a problem. Problem is, it may have happened because of other factors. Did you check whether your students were given extra coaching by somebody else? Right? Did their parents help them? So you have not checked all those factors. So cause-effect connection you have to clearly establish. Next one is called slippery slope. This is like stretching too much. So if we implement odd-even policy today to reduce the pollution, eventually the government will ban all cars. So we should not implement odd-even policy. So this kind of exaggerated conclusion, exaggerated statements, okay, you find in newspapers, news channels. Okay? But this is actually wrong. You don't have any evidence for that. Yeah, so this is, oversimplification. Look at the example. We can either stop bursting crackers or destroy the earth. So, okay, crackers may cause air pollution, but you are oversimplifying it. Right? You need to clearly argue it out. Is there any other way? Okay. Can you say all the air pollution now is caused by crackers? Have you checked other factors? Right? So you have to look at the issue very carefully. So do not jump to conclusions. Yes, this is another problem. You are only rephrasing, paraphrasing without giving any evidence, without being concrete. So if you say John is a good communicator because he speaks effectively, so you are being vague. When you say good communicator speaking effectively, they mean almost the same, right? You have to say John is a good communicator because he can persuade people to take up some action. So then it becomes more concrete. Okay? Yes. So this is another problem. This one associated with this one. Yes. This also you often see in the newspaper, news channels context. So instead of attacking the argument, you attack the person himself or herself. Okay. Say for example, okay. So let's say somebody who's living in the US is giving a solution how to improve economy. Okay? It is hit badly because of corona. But you say, instead of looking at the points, you simply say, oh, that person is in the US and doesn't know anything about India. Okay? So you are attacking the person. You are not critiquing the argument per se. Okay? So that is a problem. Okay, so these are some problems we should avoid, and if we avoid this, we can construct our argument very effectively. Okay, I think Kashyapi, is Kashyapi around?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can we take 5 minutes break?
Yes. Of course,
yeah. Then we will look at the example text. So
okay.
We'll be back just after 5.
Okay, sir.
Sir, you are not audible.
Wait, he's on break for 5 minutes.
Okay.
He'll join us back.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You are
Okay.
audible, sir.
Yeah, I'm audible. Okay.
Sir.
Okay. So let's continue. We have already seen, some badly stated arguments previously. Now we will look at argument as a whole and see, what's good and what's not so good about them. Okay. Let's look at that this text. This from GRE exam. Let's read this argument and then say what's good and what's not good about.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
The thing
Yes.
is that there are numbers. Clearly, there is evidence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your name? Hello.
I'm Chandra Kumar.
Yeah, Mr. Chandra Kumar. So what is the argument here?
Yes, sir. Which is better to buy home from? Rather sell your home.
Okay. There are two names mentioned here. Adams Realty and Fitch Realty. So which one is better according to the writer?
The Adams reality is superior, and that is the argument.
Yes. Good. So why does the writer say so?
The writer has personal experience in kind of coordinating with both, and also gives us numbers as to the same.
Okay. Let's go one by one. Okay. Point number one, the writer has some personal experience. So what is that? Can you give detail?
Yes, sir. The persons listed their home with Fitch first, and that took 4 months to sell, whereas the previous year they listed their house with Adams, and that took only 1 month.
Yes. Okay. Point number one. Good. Okay.
Then their sales revenue is cited that Adams generated more sales revenue than Fitch.
Yes. Point number two. Right.
And then the third point should be the employees. Some agents who have 40 full-time agents. Adams has 40 full-time real estate agents, and Fitch has 25, most of whom work only part-time.
Right. Okay. Point number three. Okay. Then
so after that, it's only the argument. I think that has been stated.
There's one more point. The average price sold by Fitch was $168,000. Sorry, Adams, and Fitch was $144,000. So average selling price is higher. Okay? So that's point number 4. Anything else? Okay, so these are the points. Right? So this is the main argument is this: Adams' reality is superior, and it will sell house faster and at a higher price. Why? First one, number of agents. Second, revenue. Third, average sales price. Fourth, personal experience, and the time taken to sell a house. Okay, so now, what do you think about this argument? Is it effective? Are you convinced?
Yes, sir, because it gives us 4 reasons to support the argument.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Any issues with this? Any problem?
Sorry, I don't know whether I'm correct. The profit is more.
No issues, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the profit of the company is more, which means the share that I should have got actually has gone to the company.
Okay. So customers are cheated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's what you feel. Okay.
So sorry, I have one more thing to add. The only criticism probably or drawback that I can see is that it's only based on one person's opinion and the data is one person's perception.
Okay. No, but that's the point number 4. But 1, 2, 3 are facts, right? These are established facts.
Oh, okay.
These don't change.
The profit per sale, probably. Whatever the per house, if we compute, probably that is not considered.
Okay.
Sir,
that some data is missing. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, the productivity of the agent.
Yes. See, it's an established fact. How many employees and whether they are part-time or full-time. But yes, you raised a very valid point. How good they are. Right? That point is missing. Okay, anything else?
And comparing the data of present year with data of 10 years old, the last.
Yes, very good point. Yes, very good point. So these are in 2 different timelines altogether, right? You can't compare what happened 1 month back with what happened 10 years back. So there is a problem there. Okay, then. Okay, very good. I'm very good. We have been able to identify some points. Let's look at them here. So first one, has already been identified. What about the efficiency, performance of agents? Is the number efficient to judge and come to conclusion that Adams is better than Fitch? Okay, so that's a question mark. Second, revenue yes, this point also has been raised. This revenue doesn't mean much unless it is substantiated, right? Whether it was favorable for consumers or were customers cheated, all those things are not clear here. Okay. Point number 3, see, Adam's home sales average higher, but the text does not mention what kind of house and which location, right? Imagine Adam sold all the houses in a big city and Fitch in a small place. You can't compare them, right? So this is an issue regarding sampling. So you cannot compare rural students with urban students on some same standards, right? So the sampling comparison has to be appropriate. And fourth one, again, it has been mentioned, time gap. There's a huge time gap. Another factor is what kind of house and where, right? Maybe the house in an urban area was sold earlier, faster. House in a rural area took more time, right? And most importantly, 10 years versus last month. So you see now that the text, which looked seemingly very well written, had some issues. And this is all because the argument is very strong here. The writer takes a very strong position. Look at the last one. Thus, if you want to sell your home quickly and at a good price, you should use. So if your argument is so strong, your evidence also should be so, strong. No, unquestionable. But you see, there are many issues. Okay. So with this kind of evidence, with this kind of supporting detail, you can't come to such a strong conclusion. Okay. So any questions? Okay. Now we will look at a longer text. Okay. I'll share the text. Can you see the text?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So look at the title. This is from a newspaper article. Okay, so can you look at the title and guess what this is about?
About taxing companies.
Okay, that you get to know when you read it. I'm saying just look at the title. What is soda? Have you heard?
Yes, is it about
One of
cola?
the drinks, sir.
Drinks, yes. This, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Thumbs Up, and so on. In India, we call them cool drinks, right? But standard English, they are known as soft drinks or soda. Okay. The term used is big soda. So what does it mean?
Bigger companies, the big players.
Yes, they are something very big. So that's the adjective is used, big soda. It's simply not soda industry, it's big industry. So what to do with this? Another key word is win, right? So there is some battle between two parties. So one definitely is big soda. Okay. What's the other party? That's not clearly stated, but it becomes obvious if you look at the title as a full. How to win against big soda. So this is actually giving instruction, right? This is giving suggestion. This is giving some techniques. And it appeared in a newspaper. So can you guess the other party?
Government. The public. Is it the public, sir?
It's public, yes. Somebody said government. If it were government, it would not appear in a newspaper, right? Probably it would be in the title also. How can government fight or something like that? So it's actually the general public versus big soda. And writer is very clear. The public have to win. So writer has already taken a position. Writer is favoring the general public. Writer wants the soda industry to lose. So there is a very clear position, argument here. Okay, we will not get into that whether it is right or wrong. That becomes, moral, ethical angle. We are not worried about that. But writer is very clearly against the soda industry. So are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's start the text. The soda industry won big in Chicago this week when county commissioners voted to scrap the 1% ounce tax on sugary drinks that had been in place for just 2 months. So first paragraph, gives us some detail. So this is in the context of US. Chicago is mentioned. And again, this is something to do with tax. The keyword tax is also mentioned there. Okay, let's move ahead. This is a stark turn for the effort to tax these drinks. San Francisco and Philadelphia in recent years approved measures in favor of soda levies. The sudden about face in Chicago, after a battle in which both sides spent millions on TV and radio ads, offers an important lesson for advocates of these taxes, ourselves included, as the industry we call big soda takes aim at other communities. We can't forget the grassroots. Okay. So now you see the argument is there, and argument is built following what happened. So like in research article, you build on previous research. Here the argument is built on the events which have already occurred. So what are the events? So one has already been mentioned. Something happened in Chicago. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, as of now, the big players have won. Now it's turn of the public.
Yes. So the big players have already won in Chicago. Okay. In other places, San Francisco and Philadelphia, there are still taxes, but in Chicago, the industry won, means the community, the public lost. So therefore, the argument is we can't forget the grassroots. So what is this grassroots? What to do with it? Okay, so that is developed in the following paragraphs. Remember, this is a newspaper article, right? And you want to build some suspense also. You want people to read till the end. So writer does not give away all the details, but writer drops enough hints, right? So writer very clearly says this is fight between general public and the soda industry, and we should win this. And how? We have to go back to basics, grassroots, no basics. So what? Hello. Yeah. So what is that? We'll see. While we are long-time healthy food advocates, we have only for years, these drinks were flagged for empty calories that led to weight gain. Today, the public health community understands that consuming sugar, particularly in liquid form, increases risks of serious health conditions, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, not to mention tooth decay. A 2010 study found that consuming just 1 to 2 sugary drinks a day increases your risk of developing diabetes by 26%. So what is the purpose of this paragraph? Anyone?
Data against their whatever already they have won. So these are the
Is
points
it,
in favor
okay,
of public.
Okay, is it about the court case?
The facts.
Yes, these are facts. These are medical scientific facts. Yes, good. So you can see how writers using already established facts to argue for a position. Writers trying to say these soda drinks are bad. If you simply say bad, it's not enough, right? So writer says these are empty calories, these add to diseases. There is reference to some study. Okay, not many stats are given, but it's very clear. Studies support this fact that these soda drinks are dangerous for health. Okay, let's move on. While sugar is everywhere, in cookies and crackers, breads and pasta sauce, the single largest source in the American diet is sugary drinks. A 20-ounce Coca-Cola contains 65 grams of added sugar, significantly exceeding the American Heart Association's daily maximum recommendation for adult women 25 grams and adult men 36 grams. It's not hyperbolic to claim that sugary drinks pose a major public health threat. Nationally, we spent $245 billion on diabetes medical costs in 2012. By 2030, we could be spending as much as $818 billion on the direct medical cost of heart disease. Both illnesses are associated with the consumption of sugary drinks. Okay, so what is writer doing here?
He's bringing out the financial cost of this side effect of sugary drink.
Yes, very good. So previously, can you connect it with the previous paragraph?
Previous was medical ill effects. Now he talks about the future, the economic issues, etc.
But it's related to what has been already established, right? The diseases. Now they are too much to bear also. Okay, so that's one point. Also, see, somebody may ask, okay, why are you angry against only soda drinks? There is sugar everywhere. you eat cookies, bread, then why are you filing a case only against soda industry, right? So that could be a counter argument. So see here, writer very clearly says these soft drinks are the single largest source. Sorry. So this is we saw earlier thinking of counter evidence and arguing against it. Okay. Now let's go to the next paragraph. Fortunately, we have effective tools for addressing this crisis. Taxes on sugary drinks are one. As a peer-reviewed study published this spring found, since the tax went into effect in Berkeley, California in March 2015, purchases of healthier drinks have gone up and sales of soda have gone down, all without consumer grocery bills increasing or the local food sector losing money. The tax raised about $1.5 million last year for nutrition and health programs in a city of 113,000 people. Since Berkeley passed its tax, 7 municipalities have followed suit, and many others, even some states, are interested in doing the same. This has big soda scared because these taxes, with the awareness they create about the health effects and the consumption they reduce, threaten the industry's bottom line. So now, see, writer again, builds up case for his point. So point is, there should be extra taxes. Why? There is some data from Berkeley. The taxes have actually had positive effect. Okay, what is that? That is explained. So remember, we discussed it. If something works only in one small context, it's not effective. It has greater effects. So writer says, not just Berkeley, see 7 other municipalities, some other states, they are also going to do the same thing. So it builds up your case. You say that, see, it has not worked just in one small thing, many other places also. Let's look at the next one. How scared? Leaked internal Coca-Cola emails last year revealed a coordinated war against policies like these, says a public health advocate, Kyle Pfister, who has studied these documents. This war, waged by the American Beverage Association and sugary drink manufacturers like Coca-Cola, includes a slew of duplicitous tactics, like funding research to give a hue of legitimacy to their anti-tax claims, pursuing social media influencers, lobbying at every level of government, and targeting key journalists for persuasion. These time-tested tactics have been used by the tobacco industry in its fight against cigarette taxes. So now, see how the last paragraph ends here. The soda industry is scared. So writer makes a statement. So how scared? So that is explained here. And there is also, you see, we saw earlier, if you quote an expert, that adds value to it. So here writer quotes somebody, Kyle Pfister. Okay. So all these clearly support the fact that soda industry is actually scared and they are resorting to unfair practices. So what are those? Those details are given. So why writer mentions this? See, this leads to the final argument. We'll see that now. The industry also starts and funds for grassroots organizations. In another email, a trade group representative boasted about the impact of Philadelphians against the grocery tax, an industry-funded group which deployed an aggressive media strategy that achieved a significant shift in public attitudes away from initial majority support for the discriminatory tax in Philadelphia. In the end, the industry lost there. So you remember earlier, the writer mentions, don't forget the gross roots. So what is that? Now writer comes to that. That is, one, building grassroots organizations. So these organizations work with the local people. In Cook County, which includes Chicago, so Chicago, we come back to Chicago, it was mentioned in the first paragraph. The industry scanned the tax campaign, spent millions on local TV ads, and pressured commissioners, in particular critiquing the use of the soda tax revenue to help cover budget deficits. In other cities, the money has been directed to public health concerns, or in the case of Philadelphia, to fund universal pre-K. When Jesus Garcia, a Cook County commissioner, signaled he would vote to repeal the tax, he acknowledged that the beverage industry used its financial power to shape public opinion before supporters of the tax were able to craft their own message for a public debate. So now you know what the writer is talking about. So shaping public opinion. So that's what the writer means by grassroots. There is an important lesson here. When efforts for sugary drinks taxes are driven and supported by community coalitions that build public awareness early on, they are better able to withstand industry attacks. Strong coalitions are vital both to adopt the new taxes and to ensure they remain to curb consumption and generate funds for public health programs. So you need what? Campaigns driven and supported by community. So that's the point. In Berkeley, the industry waged a $2 million anti-tax campaign. We credit the success of the tax effort there to a broad-based community coalition. So it's the same point here. A united front of the local NAACP, Latinos Unidos, Teachers Unions, and many more groups. This compact was strong enough to withstand the industry's onslaught. We won decisive with 76% of the vote. Community engagement is key. While the Cook County decision is a setback, that's what mentioned earlier in the first paragraph, it's a clear reminder of what it will take to win. There is no substitute for good old-fashioned community building. We know we will be outspent. Let's not be outnumbered. So you can clearly see the text ends with a very strong statement. The industry may have more money, but let's all come together and fight. Okay? So you can see the argument here is very effectively built. The writer is simply saying people have to come together, influence others, build a community groups, campaign. That's the point. How it is done? So writer, talks about health effects of these sugary drinks from health perspective, financial perspective, and then how this industry won when it actually supported community groups and got the community support. So drawing on those facts, writer argues people also need to come together and fight. Okay? So read it clearly. I know I had to rush through. We are running out of time. Read the text again. You will see that the argument is developed very beautifully. This is a newspaper article, so you don't see a lot of stats, all those things. But still, argument is very beautifully developed. So I will stop here. So if you have any questions, anything, we can discuss.
Thank you so much, sir. For the participants, the floor is now open to questions. You can either type it in the chat box or you can ask them directly by unmuting yourself.
Sir, yeah. Thanks for the nice illustration, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, can you just give some one or two pointers for effective argument writing?
As I said, first, your ideas have to be clear. Okay? If you are clear, that gets reflected in your writing. So first, you form your argument very clearly in your mind. Say, as you saw in that newspaper article, my argument is, I'm going to say we need to build community level groups to fight against the soda industry. So my thought is very clear. Why I'm very clear? I have all the facts and etc. So based on that, then you need to write. So idea part, you will become clear if you read more. Okay, if you research using protocols, you collect data appropriately. So that's one part. Second part, putting it in words, that comes with practice. Okay, so I would suggest one thing. In fact, I also did it when I was a student. You write something and try to remove redundant words. Read it again. Okay, let's say you have stated something. It has run to 5 sentences. Now look at it and then see if you can remove any words from it. Or, you can rephrase it, minimize it. Okay? Some resources I have listed here. So they also talk about language. I'll give you one example. Instead of saying taking into consideration, I have arrived this decision taking into consideration the plight of students. Okay? Let's say this is your statement. What is problem here? Can you replace taking into consideration with something more precise?
Based on the data.
Based on, okay. Still shorter.
From the
instead of, sorry?
From the facts, or something like that.
Okay. No, you also have to use a technical term, remember. Right? So this is just one example I'm saying. Instead of saying taking into consideration, you can simply say considering. We have arrived at this decision considering these facts, right? See, it's more, it's precise. It's also short. Right?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So, there are many other ways. If you go to these books, you will find. Another example I'll give. Usually you see it in notices. This is to inform the candidates that they have to bring admission tickets and pen, pencil, etc. So here the problem is this is to inform the candidates. I see this part as redundant. You can simply say on top, notice for candidates, and then say bring admission tickets and pens. Just one sentence. Okay? It's to the point, no unnecessary words. Of course, as I said, you need to practice. So as I said, you write something and try to remove redundant words, try to paraphrase. Then, your language becomes very neat. Okay, hope I have answered.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
If you have any other questions, you can write it in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Okay, so assuming that there are no more questions, I would now like to call upon Pankaj Kumar Verma to deliver the vote of thanks.
I'm audible. I'm audible.
Yes, Pankaj, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It was really an interesting session. You talked to
My
us.
pleasure.
You talked to us in detail about how to build an argument in the research writings, and you accept our request, and you delivered a very enlightening lecture. And thank you, sir. Thank you once again for accepting our request. I would also like to thank all participants who actively participated in this lecture. Thank you.